Welcome back to On the Ballot, our West 2 Commitment 2022 special about the initiatives on this November's Orange County ballot. The cost of a home is becoming more of a burden on all of us, whether you own or rent. In Orange County, voters are being asked to decide if renters should get a break. It would come in the form of a cap on how much your monthly housing costs can increase. The rent stabilization ordinance would limit how much rent can go up next year if you live in certain types of multifamily buildings. Opponents tell me the ordinance won't solve the housing shortage, and they believe the ordinance might be against the law. But supporters say it is the only way to deal with the housing crisis facing tens of thousands of low-wage workers in Central Florida.
Things are really tight right now. I won't lie, it's a bit stressful.
Sarah Santora's rent is going up $150 a month, stretching her budget to the limit. Soon, she'll be paying roughly $1,900 for a one-bed, one-bath. And Sarah could be considered lucky. $150 is on the lower end of rent increases. I spoke with several people who said their rent skyrocketed, jumping $500, $600, even $1,000 a month. They feel trapped or forced to leave a place they call home.
Some people moved in with other families, so you have multiple families living together, sleeping on the floor. That's what they've had to do in order to get by.
Orange County Commissioner Emily Bonilla says the situation is dire. That's why she sponsored the rent stabilization ordinance on the ballot this November. If approved, she says it will give some renters a break. Renters who can't keep paying more.
I know I could not handle another $300 increase on my rent.
Here's what the measure proposes. For 1 year, 2023, landlords would not be able to raise rent higher than the rate of inflation. It only applies to certain types of rentals, buildings with 4 or more units. Landlords who feel they just can't afford to keep the rent down can apply for an exemption. But if landlords don't comply with the law, they could face fines, even jail time.
Your main needs are shelter, food, your health care, and so I'm trying to at least take care of the shelter part.
Before the ordinance ended up on the ballot, it went before the Orange County Commission. District 2 Commissioner Christine Moore voted against it then, in part because she says it won't help everyone.
I think the real solution is increasing the supply. And so I think county government, we have to work with the development community to have responsible development in the right places. And the ordinance itself really to me is false hope because it's only a small subset of the total rental market.
The ordinance has other opponents. Florida Realtors Association and the Florida Apartment Association sued to block it from being on the ballot. A judge denied that injunction, but wrote in his ruling the ordinance might not be legal. The reason? Florida law prohibits rent caps without certain thresholds being met. The Realtors and Apartment Association are appealing the decision. Both declined my request for an interview, but in statements told me they're disappointed and plan to keep fighting the measure. The Realtors are doing that in court and through their political action committee. You've probably gotten one of these mailers, or
rent control is on the ballot. Politicians call it rent stabilization.
Seen this commercial against the rent cap from the Apartment Association's political action committee. People on both sides of this debate agree on two things. A lack of housing at all price points is a big part of this problem, and a rent cap is not a long-term solution. But supporters of the ordinance say it's worth approving to help people right now.
There's no other scenario where you would know that it was complex, caused by lots of factors, and refuse to do one thing because it didn't fix everything.
Sheena Roll works for Florida Rising, an organization advocating for rent control. She says the county absolutely needs to find sustainable solutions, but insists if the county doesn't act now, there could be considerable consequences.
You can't go to your job at the theme parks, at the restaurants, and just say, I need you to work out $300 more of income for me. And there are so many hours in the day, and when you hit that max, working 2-3 jobs, people are getting squeezed out of not just comfort, but out of housing.
Roll says Orange County employers could lose their workforce if people can't afford to live here. But landlords say if the county caps rent, it could lose developers.
They're not going to continue to develop more rentals, creating a bigger shortage and increasing the rent amounts further, which is the exact opposite of what they're trying to achieve.
Rick Cian says he takes no joy in raising rent, but his expenses have gone up too. Taxes, insurance, even the cost to maintain his properties. Cian, like many landlords I spoke with, was under the impression this ordinance would impact him and his duplexes. It won't. Still, he thinks it's the wrong move.
I think a better solution would be to incentivize developers and builders to build more affordable housing by reducing impact fees and giving incentives to them to actually come into the area, into the marketplace.
Commissioners Bonilla and Moore both tell me the county is exploring all options to solve the rent and housing crisis on a larger scale for the long term. But right now, it's up to voters to decide in the short term what happens to rent next year. The lawsuit against this ordinance is still moving forward. If the courts rule against the ordinance, even if voters approve it, the rent stabilization would not become law. So this issue might not truly be settled until after Election Day. Orange County isn't the only one struggling with how to deal with housing costs. Brevard County voters are being asked to fund an affordable housing trust fund dedicated to creating more rental and home options. We have much more on that proposal, as well as the rent stabilization ordinance and the transportation tax proposal on WESH.com. Early voting runs until November 5th and 6th, depending on the county you live in, so make sure that you have your say on these ballot initiatives now or on Election Day, November 8th. For the entire Commitment 2022 team, thanks for watching.